Hello! If you are new here, my name's Jackie, I'm a soon-to-be published author. If you are not new here, welcome back, it's great to see you again. So, as I mentioned, I am a soon-to-be published author. My first novel, Powerless, is going to be coming out on June 13th of this year. I'm hoping there will be pre-order links ready by the time this video comes out. If there are, they will be in the description. If not, stay tuned for the next video, they'll be added then. So I wanted to do a video to explain why I decided to self-publish, because I was someone who never thought I would self-publish fiction. And there are a number of reasons why other authors might want to get traditionally published. It might be they're not sure how to produce a book, they don't have the budget to do it themselves. For me, the biggest pieces were validation and marketing support. So let's look at each of those. The biggest reason I wanted to get traditionally published was because I felt like if my book wasn't accepted by an agent or a publisher, then it wasn't good enough to get published. That was that. And if it wasn't good enough to get published, that was fine. It just meant I would need to write another book. And the truth is that there are other reasons beyond quality why a book is rejected. It could be that the agent or publisher doesn't know how to market it. It could be that there are similar books on an agent's or editor's list and they don't have space for another one that's like yours. It could be that they just have too many books at the moment, so they're not taking queries, or they don't have room for another client. And none of these reasons have anything to do with the quality of the book. So having this blanket belief that not getting a traditional publishing deal means my book's not good enough isn't actually true. Yet I spent most of the last 3 years believing that. So to give you some context, I wrote the first draft of Powerless at the end of 2019. I revised it over the next year or so, and I think it was April 2021 when I started sending out queries. Over the next year and a half, I sent over 80 queries, and this was to both agents and independent publishers. Of those 80 queries, almost all of them either rejected me or just didn't respond. I did get one request from an agent who then rejected the book once she saw the full thing, that was not a good day. And I had one independent publisher who was interested in working together, but I decided it didn't feel like a fit. Basically, I'd been getting all of this feedback from the market that the book wasn't good enough and it shouldn't be published. And until August 2022, my thought process was, this isn't the book for now. And I love this book. I've done a lot of work on this book. I've had beta readers, I've had critiques, I've had a lot of people see it and give feedback. I still like it when I go back to it. But clearly it's not good enough or not marketable, or people don't have space for a book like this. So I'll just put it to the side. And my plan was to put Powerless to the side and work on something else that was more marketable. And then once I got the future agent or publisher, I would say, okay, and how about this for book 2 or book 3 or book 4? Because one of the things I noticed with like superhero books that were traditionally published is that unless they're tied to a property like DC or Marvel, they don't tend to be an author's debut. Usually they've got a few books out already and then they do the superhero one. So I thought, okay, maybe, like I've got this written now, but it can be a later book. And that was my plan until August, when I actually won an award for this book. In fact, do I have the medal? Yeah, it's that one. So as part of my querying journey, I entered Powerless in a bunch of competitions for unpublished novels, thinking that it might help get the attention of an agent or publisher. And one of these competitions was from a conference called Killer Nashville, which is mostly for like crime and mystery type of books, but they also allow books with elements of suspense. So mine, I'm like, well, it has elements of suspense, so I might as well submit it, and it actually won in the YA category. So I had planned to put this book to the side, and then I got this validation that I was looking for, which was, oh, maybe this is good enough. And the reason it isn't getting picked up isn't because of the quality, it's because of those other reasons I mentioned earlier. It's because of the marketability or something else. And what's funny is that after I won this competition, I started getting other forms of validation, not a contract, obviously, but I had that independent publisher who was interested in the book. It is currently shortlisted for another competition for unpublished books. I ended up working freelance with an editor from a company that only hires people with traditional publishing backgrounds, and he thought it was in great shape and that it was something I should try publishing myself. And getting that feedback from someone with the traditional publishing background was really encouraging for me. And then the final piece of validation was I actually applied to join a writing retreat, which is coming up in March, and you needed to submit a 3,000 word sample for that. And what was interesting is the faculty who were reviewing these samples for the program, everyone on the faculty is someone I queried or someone from an agency I queried who rejected the book. But I did the sample from Powerless and I said, and at this point I was like, okay, I think I'm going to self-publish, but I'm not quite sure. So if I get this one thing, if I get into this program, then that's a sign. And I got into the program. So the first thing I was looking for from traditional publishing, which was the validation, is this good enough to publish? I managed to get elsewhere. I got through the competitions and through the editor and through getting into this program. So it's like, okay, first checkbox, done. The next reason I was interested in working with a traditional publisher was for the marketing support. Now, when it comes to producing a book, I'm very comfortable with that. I actually used to have my own self-publishing company for entrepreneurs, so that means I know how to publish a book. I have cover designers that I've worked with before, I have editors I've worked with before, I know how to set up a book as an ebook and print on demand, so I didn't have a learning curve that I was worried about. It was purely the marketing, because the books I published in the past, they weren't written to be sold, if that makes sense. So the way it worked was, if you're an entrepreneur and you're writing a book as a business tool, you're really planning to use that book as a business card, in that you will give the book away for free to someone with the hope that they become a $10,000 client. So instead of selling a book and hoping to make $20, $25 a book, you're giving the book away because it's part of a sales strategy. So that meant my authors were never really worried about book sales, so we never had to market the book as a book. The book was like a brochure for their business. It was a very different business model. By contrast, I'm now hoping to publish a book as part of the author business model, which is about selling books. The book is the product. And I wasn't sure how to get people to buy my book. So I knew how to produce a book, I just wasn't sure how to market a book. And I really thought, I know there's a limit to what traditional publishers do in terms of marketing, especially for new unknown authors, but I thought at least having someone to ask, is this something I should be doing, would be helpful. Now then, one of the independent publishers I queried, in fact this was the one who was interested in working with me, they asked me to submit a marketing plan as part of my query. So what I ended up doing was I made a list of over 300 different influencers I wanted to reach out to. I learned about Goodreads giveaways and Amazon ads and looked at how you'd get a NetGalley account and all these different things I'd heard of as part of the book marketing process, but because I was planning to traditionally publish, I'd never really looked into it myself because I knew that the publisher would need to set up a lot of these accounts. And what happened, somewhat funnily, is by the time I finished the marketing plan, I went, oh, this doesn't feel that complicated. Maybe I could do this after all. Admittedly, I have no idea if it's going to work. I could just spend a whole lot of money and nothing happens, but I felt like before I did that marketing plan, I would have just been putting the book out there and maybe doing some Facebook ads and hoping it worked. Whereas now I'm like, okay, I've got this list of activities I'm going to do and maybe it'll work or maybe it won't, but at least I feel like I have a starting point. So that was the other reason I wanted to get traditionally published. And then when I felt like I'd figured it out, it's like, oh, well, maybe I don't need to get traditionally published after all. So I decided to self-publish the book. And there's still a part of me that goes, oh, maybe I should wait. Maybe I should just keep Powerless in my back pocket and write something else and get that traditionally published. But the more I think about it, the less sense it makes to wait, because ultimately I want to be a working author. And I know that a big part of being a working author is having more books out, because when someone finds one of your books, they're more likely to go back to your backlist. And that's where you start to make an income. That only works if you have a backlist. So if I publish Powerless this year, then I'm starting to build that backlist, which is both terrifying and very exciting. So I don't know if that was interesting, but that is why I, someone who had hoped that this book would be traditionally published and wanted to be traditionally published for 3 years, decided to self-publish. And it's coming out on June 13th, which is very exciting, very scary. If the pre-order's ready, links are below. If not, they'll be ready next video, so I will see you then.